Good morning, students. Welcome back to our physics classes. So we will wait for 2 more minutes. Some of you are joining now. I hope all of you got the schedule for your first semester examination. And the portions for our physics, I already told you, and I hope all other subjects also you got the syllabus for your first semester examination. And if you find any issues with the syllabus and if you find any doubt, you can approach, you can call or you can message your concerned teachers and they will resolve. And I told you regarding the question paper pattern and how you have to represent or how you have to present your answer sheets. All these matters I told you in one day, and in different sections. Overall choice is not there, internal choice is there for one question in section B, section C, and section D. You will get the internal choice for all the questions. And one more thing I have to remind you regarding the printing of our question papers. In your question paper, you can find some bold letters. Suppose in a question, sometimes maybe you can find bold letters A dot B. Without any vector notations, if you find like this with bold letters, remember that this is vector A and vector B. Vector A, vector is represented by bold letters in your question paper. In your questions, instead of vector A dot vector B, you can find thick A dot B. So vectors in your question paper you will find with the thick letters. And if you find simply A into B, remember that that is the magnitude of those vectors. Okay, so vectors are represented by thick letters, and thin one are their magnitudes. Okay, so suppose vector A is given as 2i plus 3j plus a. Find A. The question means find A, which means this is a vector A, and you have to find its magnitude. Remember that. Okay, don't get confused when you are seeing all these in your question paper. Okay, that you have to be careful. So that is the matter I have to tell you regarding the question paper. Okay. I hope in your textbook also it is given like that only. Means vectors are represented with thick letters. In the chapter of vectors, you can find the vectors are represented like that. Okay. Anyhow, we will continue with our circular motion, uniform circular motion. So during the last class, we have seen what is a circular motion, what is a uniform circular motion, what is non-uniform circular motion, then angular velocity, then angular displacement. These matters we have seen in the last class. And we have a relation between angular displacement and linear displacement, then angular velocity and linear velocity. V is equal to r omega. That means V by r is equal to omega. That equation or that relation that we have seen in the last class. Now, listen here. Suppose an object is undergoing uniform circular motion. Okay. Now, suppose the radius of the circular path is r. Suppose the radius of the circular path is r. When the object is at this point, its velocity is given like this v1. And when the particle reaches here, that means something is O and this is P and this is Q, the velocity is acting length. Tangent is acting. This is V. So V1 and V2 are the velocities at the points P and Q respectively. And from P to Q, the particle travels a distance delta s. The particle travels a linear distance delta s. And if you are drawing these two velocities from a common point, if you are representing those two velocities from a single common point, so you can draw that here. So here this is V2 in magnitude direction, and this is V1 in magnitude direction. This is V1 and see this V1 and V2. This is tangential, so that will be tangent. V1 and V2 are there. Then, if you are completing this triangle by making the third side like this. So it completes a triangular by when you are having the triangle method. So you are having these two V1 and these two vectors are taken in the same order, and V2 is taken in the reverse order. So you take this as delta V. So V1 plus delta V is equal to V2. So delta V is equal to V2 minus V1. What should be that V2 minus V1? V2 and V1 are the velocities of the particle at the points P and Q respectively. The points P and Q at the points P and Q, we got the velocities V1 and V2. See, in the direction of V2 is towards the center. The direction of delta V is acting towards the center of that circular path. Anyhow, when you are considering the triangle OPQ and suppose this is A, B, C. These two triangles you can find they are similar triangles by making an angle theta in between. So here is also angle theta. So if they are similar triangles, then you can write delta S by R is equal to delta V by V1 or V2. Since the particle is moving with the constant velocity, that means uniform circular motion, then V1 and V2 should be same. So V1 and V2 should be same. So delta V by V you can take. And delta S by delta R is equal to delta V by V. So we can have delta V is equal to, from this delta V is equal to delta S into V divided by R. Delta V by V is equal to, delta V is equal to delta S into V divided by R. And when you are taking delta V by delta T, then you are taking delta V by delta T, that becomes delta S by delta T into V by R. Delta S by delta T into V by R. So what is V? Delta V by delta T when you are taking the delta T limit, delta T tending to 0, limit to delta T tending to 0. So delta V by delta T will become dV by dt. So with the limit as limit delta T tending to 0, delta V by delta T is equal to limit delta T tending to 0, delta S by delta T multiplied by V by R. I think we have done, we have applied the condition that limit delta T tending to 0 on both sides. Then delta V by delta T, what is the rate of change of this will become dv by dt equal to ds by dt into d by r. When you are applying the limit delta t tending to 0, then delta v by delta t changes to dv by dt. That is the definition of differentiation that we already see. So dv by dt is acceleration is equal to ds by dt. ds by dt is v and r is there. So v square divided by r is equal to v square divided by r. We just go through the diagram and the steps that we have written, and if you find any difficulty, you can ask. Ayush.
Good morning, sir. Hello. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir, please explain from the first line of the left side you have written.
The sound.
Okay.
More clearly. Ayush,
Sir, 2 minutes actually. I went to off the fan.
you are not
Sir.
audible. You are not audible.
So am I now?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Sir, will you please explain from the first line of the left side you did written?
Where?
Sir,
Yeah.
the left side. Yes, sir. From the first line of that.
See, this is we are having this equation delta v by delta t is equal to delta s by delta t into v by r. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Now we are getting that we are differentiating with respect to t. That is delta t is the delta v by delta t. So we are applying the condition that as delta t tending to 0, that means limit delta t tending to 0, delta v by delta t is equal to dv by dt. That is the definition for differentiation.
Okay.
Okay, so limit delta t tending to 0, delta v by delta t is equal to dv by dt. And on the right hand side also limit delta t tending to 0, delta s by delta t you can write it as ds by dt. Multiplied by v by r is already there. Are you getting me?
Not really.
Huh?
No, sir.
Are you getting it or not?
No, sir.
Which one you are not getting? Which step you are finding difficulty?
Sir, after the right hand side of is equal to on the first line. So actually, it's not clear.
Huh?
It's very small. So it's not very big to see properly. Actually, that's why.
Limit delta t tending to 0, delta s by delta t. That is written as ds by dt.
Okay, sir.
Okay, then v by r is already there. That you have written here as v into v by r. Then when ds by dt comes, that is v. Then that v and this v getting multiplied, that is v square here. And in the denominator r is there, that r will be remaining there.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this is the acceleration of the particle when it is under uniform circular motion. Even though it is uniform circular motion, it is having an acceleration. Why it is having acceleration? Because its velocity is continuously changing. But you remember, the change in velocity is not due to the change in its magnitude, but change in its direction. Clear? So the change in velocity is not due to the changes in its magnitude. Since it is under uniform circular motion, its speed remains constant, but its direction always changes. So we have seen that the delta v is acting always toward the center. So acceleration is also acting in the same direction in which the velocity change happens. So the velocity change happens in the same direction as that of the velocity change. So velocity change is acting towards the center. Hence, the acceleration is also acting towards the center of that circular path. So that acceleration which is acting towards the center of the circular path is known as centripetal acceleration. That is known as centripetal acceleration. So centripetal, why it is called centripetal acceleration? Because that acceleration acting upon that object, or the velocity changes happening to that object happens in the direction toward the center of that circular path. So acceleration is also center seeking acceleration. That means acting towards the center. That is center seeking or centripetal acceleration. So that is the centripetal acceleration. So centripetal acceleration is the acceleration, only acceleration acting on an object which is under uniform circular motion. Listen to my sentence clearly. Centripetal acceleration is the only acceleration acting on an object under uniform circular motion. Is it clear? So when the object is under uniform circular motion, if the object is under uniform circular motion, then only one acceleration is acting on that object, and that acceleration is acting only towards the center of that circular path. Only towards the center of that circular path. Why? Because the acceleration is due to the change in the direction of the velocity. Since it is in uniform motion, there is no change in velocity. Remember that. But when an object is under non-uniform circular motion, when it is moving, non-uniform circular motion, then the magnitude of velocity also changes. And always velocity is tangential to the circular path. That acceleration caused by the change in magnitude is also acting tangential to that. So remember, at that sense, the particle will experience two accelerations. One is the centripetal acceleration and the other is the tangential acceleration. So at that moment, so when you are having such a situation, that means a particle undergoing non-uniform circular motion, then it has two acceleration, tangential and radial. Two components will be there for acceleration AT and AR. One is radial acceleration, that is acting towards the center through its radius. It is acting towards the center through its radius. And that is the radial acceleration. Tangential acceleration is acting tangential to the circular path. So the net acceleration will be A is equal to root of AR square plus AT square. That means root of radial acceleration, root of square of radial acceleration plus tangential acceleration. Root of AR square plus AT square, where AR is the radial acceleration and AT is the tangential acceleration. So tangential acceleration AT you can divide as dV by dt. That means I already told you that is due to the change in magnitude of the velocity of that object. Change in magnitude, that is dV by dt. And AR, radial acceleration, is given by v square divided by. Okay, so that is the acceleration for an object when it is undergoing non-uniform circular motion. Okay, so we have uniform circular motion and non-uniform circular motion, acceleration in uniform circular motion and velocity in non-uniform non-uniform circular motion. Muhammad Hassan. Yes, what happened?
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
So what have you written there? The last one, radial acceleration equals.
A is equal to root of a square r plus a square t. That means tan root of radial acceleration, square of radial acceleration plus square of tangential acceleration.
So the last line,
This is
radial yes.
b square divided by r.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So that is the acceleration of a uniformly accelerated uniform motion, sorry, circular motion, and non-uniformly or uniform circular motion and non-uniform circular motion. I hope it is clear. Okay. So when an object is under uniform circular motion, when an object is under uniform circular motion, it is experiencing a radial acceleration. It is experiencing an radial acceleration. The acceleration is acting radially towards the center of that circular path. We called that acceleration as centripetal acceleration. According to Newton, or according to Newton's second law, if an object is experiencing an acceleration, behind that a force is there. Or if an object is experiencing an acceleration, a force is acting on that object. And the force and acceleration are acting in the same direction. Force and acceleration are acting in the same direction that we have already seen. In case of a uniform circular motion, since it is experiencing an acceleration towards its center, it will experience a force also, which is acting into the center of that circular path. Such a force experienced by an object under uniform circular motion, the force which is acting towards the center of the circular path, is known as centripetal force. It is known as centripetal force. It is known as a centripetal force. So centripetal force is derived from centripetal acceleration. Centripetal force is derived from centripetal acceleration. So if Fc is a centripetal force, then you can write it as m into centripetal acceleration. M into centripetal acceleration. AC means centripetal acceleration. FC means centripetal force. So that is equal to m into what is AC? AC is the centripetal acceleration that we have already got as v square divided by r. So mv square divided by r is the centripetal force. mv square by r is the centripetal force acting on an object of mass m moving with a velocity v through an circular path of radius r. If an object of mass m is moving with a velocity v along the circumference of a circle of radius r, then it will experience a centripetal force which is given by mv square divided by mv square divided by r. That is the centripetal force. That is the centripetal force. But we have already got that equation. V is equal to r omega. So you can write Fc is equal to m into r omega whole square divided by r. Which means that is m r omega. That is another equation for centripetal acceleration. Sorry, centripetal force. Another equation for centripetal force is m r into omega square, where omega is the angular velocity. Omega is the angular velocity, and v is the radial velocity, linear velocity, and r is the radius of the circular path. Either you can express as mv square by r, or it is mr omega square. Either it is mv square by r or mr omega square. So that is the centripetal force. See, the importance of centripetal force is, if there is no such a centripetal force on an object undergoing circular motion, what will happen to that object? If there is no centripetal acceleration, that object cannot be continue in its own circular path. If there is no centripetal force, that object cannot be in that circular path. What happens then? It will fly off tangential to that circular path. It will fly off tangential to the circular path. You can easily check the presence of importance of centripetal force with an example. Suppose you are tying a stone in a string. Just you tie a stone in a string, and you just whirl it in the vertical, sorry, in the horizontal plane. So that since you are holding that string, that is the center, and the length of the string is the radius, and with that radius, if you are whirling it, that stone will undergo uniform, circular motion. If you are keeping it in a constant speed, it will undergo a uniform circular motion. Suppose when you are whirling it and the stone is just in front of your face. You are whirling it and the stone is undergoing circular motion, and when it reaches to parallel, perpendicular to your face, you just withdraw the string. Did you get the situation? You are whirling something in a row, and when it just is coming straight to your face, you just release the string. What will happen to that stone? Better I ask, what will happen to you? What will happen? Can you imagine? That stone will surely hit your face. If you have any doubt, you can do after this video. Okay, you just take a stone and tie it in a stone, in a rope or a string, and you just whirl it. And if you just coming to your face, you just release it. Did you get the result? Why? How? What you are getting as result? It will hit your face. Otherwise, if you are riding a bicycle in a muddy place or muddy area, then from the tire you can see the particles of mud are getting out, and you can find that as the tire is going in the upward direction, the particles of mud particles are also moving tangential to that tire. That means straight upwards. That is another example of centripetal force. And the first case also, I told you, if you release the thread, what will happen? The force that you are giving to that string, that is the centripetal, that is providing, that is the center of that circular path, and the centripetal force is acting towards the center. So the force that you are providing there is providing the necessary centripetal force there. If you are releasing it, that centripetal force is absent there. So what will happen? If the centripetal force is missing from or missing on a particle undergoing circular motion, it will fly off tangential to the circular path. It will fly off tangential to the circular path. It's clear. So I already told you, we have already seen that whenever you are having a circular path, At any point, velocity is acting tangential to the circular path. So it will be tangential at any point. So where the centripetal force is missing, then it will fly off with the direction of its velocity. What is the direction of its velocity? That is tangential to the circular path. So we can find different circular motions in our surroundings. Remember, anywhere you are finding such a circular motion, they require a centripetal force. And the very most common or most important circular motion is the movement of Earth around Sun. The movement of Earth around Sun. Earth is revolving around Sun. So Earth is in a circular path. So what will provide the necessary centripetal force? The gravitational force of attraction between Sun and Earth is providing the necessary centripetal force there. Gravitational force between Sun and Earth is providing the necessary centripetal force for Earth to revolve around the Sun through a circular path. Clear? You have learned from your chemistry classes, atoms are having nucleus and electrons. Electrons are revolving around the nucleus through certain circular paths called orbits. Have you learned that? Yes. So electrons are under circular motion around nucleus. So who is providing the necessary centripetal force? The electrostatic attraction between positively charged nucleus and negatively charged electrons are providing the necessary centripetal force. Clear? While you are riding a scooty or a bike, when you are taking a turn, it is advised that you have to slow down your pace. You have to slow down your speed. Otherwise, what will happen? There is a chance of accident. And I don't know whether you have seen or not our car rallies or bike racing tournaments. Have you ever seen? In that kind of situation, you can see that if a car is coming with a high speed and it is getting a turn, sometimes it is hitting from the road. And the bike race also, if a rider is coming with a high speed and he is trying to take a turn, sometimes he failed to turn and he will be moving tangential to that circular path. Again, when you are taking a turn in the road, if you are taking a turn in the road, you have to move in a circular path. It has a center, and a centripetal force is required to provide. Centripetal force is required to provide that. Centripetal force is required for the particles to be in this circular path. If that centripetal force is missing, what will happen? The particle will move in a direction tangential to that means there is making a accident there. So in these all conditions or situations, we have to require or we have to keep a centripetal force towards the center of that circular path. Otherwise, it will be getting out from the centripetal, out from the circular path. See, as Newton said, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. There is an equal and opposite reaction. Action is a force and reaction is the opposite force generated from the action. So, when you are having a centripetal force toward the center, that object is experiencing an opposite force. And that force is experiencing a centripetal opposite force means it is theoretically, we are saying that it is experiencing a opposite force. And that force is acting from the center towards that object. Centripetal force is acting from the object towards its center of the circular. But here, the opposite force is said to be acting from the center towards that object, That is the reactionary force of centripetal force, and that is known as centrifugal force. Centrifugal force is a pseudo force. Centrifugal force is a pseudo force. What do you mean by pseudo? Which is not really is called pseudo. So centrifugal force is a pseudo force, which means it is theoretically a force is there, but actually that kind of force is a pseudo one. So that is the centripetal force. Centripetal force is the force which is acting towards the center on an object which is undergoing a circular motion. Centrifugal force is a pseudo force which is the reactionary force of the centripetal force. So we have already, I have already told you, when you are taking a turn, on a road, there is a chance of skidding. So to avoid that, suppose when you are, I think you have experienced that when you are undergoing a circular, when you are turning, suppose you are riding a bicycle and you are turning a curve. And at the time, you will bend or you will lean inwards when you are making or when you are going to a turn. Have you experienced that? If you are riding to when you are riding to a circular path, you will lean inwards while you are crossing that curve. After that, what will happen? You will move as like. If you are not leaning inwards and if you are trying to move straight, what will happen? There is a chance of skidding from the path. Sometimes you can see when you are going through highways and all, when you are making a turn, the road is made in a particular way. Which particular way? The road is made in such a way, the inner side is slightly lean inwards and the outer side is somewhat at a height. That means instead of a flat road, you will find a road. It means the outer side is somewhat lifted and the inner side is somewhat at the. You can find that in outer side is somewhat lifted. Then only if a vehicle is traveling through this path, it will automatically lean inwards. Have you ever experienced that? That is known as banking of road. That process is known as banking of curve or banking of. Banking of road is a technique. Banking of road or banking of curve is a technique so as to avoid skidding when vehicles are traveling through a circular path. Or when you are riding a bicycle, you will lean inwards while you are turning a curve. Again, you have to maintain the necessary centripetal force to cover that curved area or that curved path. See, all these are based on our centripetal force. And theoretically, we have to explain why the road is banked, or why you are leaning inwards when you are crossing a curved path. So that we will discuss in the next class. Means it is time taking, so we will discuss it in the next class. Okay, so you remember in your mind if you want to travel in a curved path, or if you want to make anything to continue in a circular path, you have to supply it with an necessary centripetal force. Wherever that centripetal force is missing, whenever that centripetal force is missing, you have to, or that object has to move tangentially to the circular path at that particular moment. Okay. So nobody go after this. We need to take it stone and tie it in a thread and just put it in the horizontal surface, I mean horizontal path, and when it just reaches your face, don't leave the thread. If it just leave the thread, that will hit your face, and that will be dangerous if that stone is as massive as. Okay, so it is only for an example. I told you, or don't go for that. Anyhow, it is an example for centripetal force, and if a centripetal force is absent, what is happening there? Okay, so that's all for today. And if you find anything to ask, then you can ask now. Otherwise, we can wind up. I hope all of you are familiar with our, I mean, still I am getting some messages, personal messages with the syllabus and all. So I repeat, the syllabus for your first semester examination is, first one, motion along a straight line, planar motion, that is motion in 2-dimensional, motion in a plane, then uniform, sorry, our Newton's laws of motion, then work energy, power, and friction. Okay, that are the portions for your first semester examination. This uniform circular motion will not come for your first semester examination. It will be there for the second semester. Okay. Ayush Kumar. Anything to ask?
Sir, is my voice coming?
Yeah.
Okay. So while we have seen in bike racing and all, so the bikers doesn't reduces their speed while taking the sharp turn as well. They just bend their bikes in the direction of the circular path in the inner world. In that case, the centripetal force is acting, or the centrifugal.
Centripetal force. Centripetal force is only the requirement for keeping in a circular path.
Okay.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, centripetal force is a requirement. I already told you, centrifugal force is a pseudo force. So it's a, theoretically we can say that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. But the force which keeps a particle in its circular motion is the centripetal force.
Okay. Sure, sir.
Did you get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Then we are winding up now, and we will continue tomorrow.